Hello, I'm Kerry Hull, America's Healthcare Advocate. On today's show, joining me in studio, Dillon Towey and Luke Towey from Francise Resource. You know, you're thinking about making that move into the franchise world. You probably want to talk to these folks. You probably want to listen to this broadcast because you're going to learn a lot you didn't know. Stay tuned, listen, and learn today as we talk to two experts in the franchise world.
And now, America's Healthcare Advocate, Kerry Hall.
Hello, America. Welcome to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIA Radio Network. You can find out more about us by going to the website, America's Healthcare Advocate. All these shows are broadcast on 243 radio stations across the country, our 16 podcast channels, and our YouTube channel. I'm happy to report that the podcast channel and YouTube channels are up to 643,000 downloads out there because of all of you in the audience. We greatly appreciate that, and we appreciate all the support and interest in this broadcast. In studio with me today, Dillon Towey and Luke Towey. Luke's back for a second time. Welcome back, Luke.
Thanks, Kerry.
They came up from Nebraska last night. Welcome, Dillon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And they are the brothers that own Francise Resource. It's a fascinating company. I think what they do is very helpful, unusual, if you will, especially to people that are trying to make that move out of the corporate world. You see this opportunity for franchises. You go, oh, my goodness, this is a package deal. I'll buy in. You know, my wife and I, or my family, or maybe, you know, the person moving by themselves think this is a real opportunity. I'm going to really do well at this. Maybe I'll get 2 or 3 of these things, and then, 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the road, sell them and right off into the sunset in that 45-foot RV. Well, there might be some challenges with that. So, Luke, let's talk a little bit about just how you guys started. You're like a family-owned company. Obviously, you and your brother here. Yep. You've got other family members in the company. You've been doing this now for, 14 years?
About 14 years, yep. Late 2012 we started.
And you started out basically doing the accounting and the bookkeeping.
Yep. I was working for a franchisor prior to that, and they were going through a private equity sale, and so left there to go work at a family office doing some investment, early stage investment in healthcare technology. And at the same time, some of those franchisees reached out and were like, hey, my financials aren't straight. I don't, they could sell, but they didn't understand their financials. And when things were turning a little bit down, the bank account would go down, and they were like, what am I supposed to do? And so we started helping a couple of those just on the side out of our home. And that just kind of grew to us kind of getting a niche in emerging franchises and partnering with those brands and kind of standardizing all the accounting and bookkeeping for their brand.
But there's a lot more that you do. Okay. Besides that, now, I mean, you know, the accounting and bookkeeping is obviously a very important part of that because, you have to learn how. What do you mean I have to file a sales tax report?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And I got to issue K-1s and I have to do all these other things. If you come out of the corporate world, where a lot of these people come out of the corporate world, they've got a nice 401k, they've got money set aside. They say, okay, I can put $100,000 into this and buy into this thing and actually be able to have a business of my own. It's always been our dream. I'm sick of the corporate world and all the corporate nonsense. And then they find out there are all these other things that they don't know they're going to get to do. Or have to do, and it's like, oh my God, what did I get into here?
Absolutely, yep. That's the truth. I mean, they just don't know exactly what they're getting into. In the corporate world, they probably always had somebody that kind of did those things for them, and now they're in charge of the P&L. They're in charge of everything, right? And the franchisor provided the playbook, but they still got to run the business and file their taxes and pay sales tax and do all those kind of things. And they've never had to do that before. So
yeah, it's like a whole new world. This is like, oh, well, yeah, I kind of knew I was going to have to do this, but then how do I do it?
Yep.
Yeah. And it becomes a little bit different than what they thought it was going to be.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's where you guys come in. You're a family owned company. As I said, your brother's here, you've got other family members in the company, and basically you're here to help guide them, give them advice and help them make their business be successful.
Yeah. We want to kind of be that second set of eyes for their financials and how they're performing, and help provide some guidance and let them focus on, hiring good people and managing employees and going out and generating more revenue, right? And not have to worry about kind of the back end.
Yeah, we kind of call that working on the business, not in the business.
Yep, exactly.
Exactly. When you're having to do all of what you guys do, in addition to try to run the business, you don't have a lot of time to run the business like you'd like to run it, right?
Yep, exactly. Nobody wants to be up at 10 o'clock or on the weekends trying to catch up on financials. That's the time that you want to have some, most people do this too because they want to have some kind of balance with their family life outside of corporate America, right? So you don't want to be running 24/7. And if we can take this piece off of their plate, make it easier for them, that's great.
And of course, then they do find out they're running 24/7 because they didn't, and they are working Saturdays and Sundays because they're trying to catch up, keep up. You've got to report back to corporate, back to your franchisor, if you will.
Yep.
All right, because they want to know how you're doing, and you've still got all these tax. I think one time I actually looked this up. I think they're a franchisee pays something like 21 different taxes that they actually have to pay. When you look at all the taxes they have to pay, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but it's actually very true.
Yep.
And a lot of times you don't know that stuff going in.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If you've never done it before, you don't know, right? You don't know what you have to pay, and you're trying to balance what you can bring home at the end of the day and balance that. So, we want to be that guide for them. And if we don't provide it in-house, we want to provide the partner that can help them out, right? Provide some guidance.
And you guys partner with them to do that in addition to the work that you do. If they need help in some other area, you're able to help them do all of that.
Absolutely.
What you think the dream's going to be, and I speak as somebody, we talked about this over breakfast this morning, I speak as somebody that had a franchise, and it was a very difficult process, and it was a very difficult operation to run, and I had no idea.
Yep.
And I didn't come out of the corporate world. I came out of my business in California, which we sold when we moved here to Kansas, and got into this franchise, the Mr. Goodsense franchise, and I had no idea. I mean, I know what we were told and how we were told it was going to run, and then I found out what it was like to really be the guy. And it was a little different than what we thought it was going to be.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, that turns out to be kind of a wake-up call.
Yep.
And the problem is that once you've committed, you're committed.
Yep.
And
you are.
And you want it to be successful. And
some people need it to be successful. Yeah.
I mean, you dump your life savings into one of these things, or a big chunk of your life. I mean, some of these franchises, I was fortunate. I think we got into ours for either 50 or 100,000. I can't remember what it was. I remember what I gave it back to them for when I walked away from it. But that was an interesting point you just made. You dump $250,000 into something like this, or even more than that, for some of these franchises that are more money than that. And you better make it successful, or you're going to have a less than pleasant retirement.
Yep, exactly.
And I think a lot of people think that this is their path to total retirement and all the rest of it, and that's really why they're looking to make that move.
Yeah, they do. They want the freedom and the lifestyle, and then they kind of want to do it on their own and kind of forge their own path, right?
Except whenever they come back and find out they didn't have quite as much freedom as they thought they were going to have, because there's a hell of a lot more work involved than they thought there was going to be. Coming up on the break, and we come back from the break, I'm going to switch topics now and talk to Dillon. If you're one of these people that's actually considering doing this, you probably want to talk to somebody that knows what you're walking into. That's what these people do. They're really good at what they do. They're a family-owned company. The website is Francise Resource, LLC.com. Reach out to them. If you want to just have a conversation, we're going to talk about this week. Come back from the break. We're going to talk with Dillon about this consulting piece. What is it I need to know before I make this move? I know what the dream is, but what do I need to know before I make the move, and the move doesn't turn from a dream into a nightmare? If you just want to talk to somebody and try to understand that, maybe you're considering this, you're thinking about doing it, go to their website, franchiseresourcellc.com. Send them a quick note. They'll be happy to catch up with you. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast, across the USA. Don't go anywhere. We've got more. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIA Radio Network. If you want to reach out to me, maybe you want to send me an email, maybe you've got a question, if I can help you with anything regarding health insurance, health care, or any other issues, please feel free to reach out. Go to the website, americashealthcareadvocate.com. Send me an email. I get a lot of them, but you know what? I answer each and every one of them. You send me an email, I will respond to you. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. In studio again with me, Dillon Towey and Luke Towey. And we're talking about their company, Francise Resource. We're also talking about people that do this. They come out of the corporate world, and this is really kind of interesting because this actually kind of came to my attention a couple of weeks ago when Luke and all of us were on a call on a Teams meeting, talking about the gig care product that they're offering to the franchises through 1099 for healthcare benefits. And they had sent an email, and one of the ladies who actually worked for a franchisor immediately reached out within 30 minutes of the time that Luke had sent the email out and said, oh my goodness, this is one of the best things that's ever happened, because one of the biggest hurdles people have is trying to go from their corporate job with their group health insurance policy over to finding private insurance in the marketplace, which can be very difficult. So it kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the challenges that are being faced. And we talked a little bit about this. Actually, we talked a lot about it at breakfast. So Dillon, you have a piece in your information on your website talks about consulting, but you really do a lot more than just consulting to somebody that's already existing. Talk about, your job is enrollment and bringing people in, getting them set up and all that. Talk a little bit about how you guys help people. Somebody's interested, they think they want to do this, they want to get their toe in the water, they want to understand it, they like the idea, of a particular franchise. You mentioned a couple of the gym concepts. There was a turf company, which I thought was pretty amazing. We'll talk about that a little later. And then dog sitting services. So just talk about a little bit about what happens when somebody reaches out to you guys and go, okay, we think we have the money. My wife and I, I'm assuming it's usually a husband and wife.
Yep.
We have the money and we have the desire, but is this a smart move for us? Dillon?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. So, I had the luxury on the Francise Resource accounting side to do all the onboarding and development. So I had the opportunity to speak to these new franchisees, right, that were extremely excited about their new business, a new franchise. And we got to keep that relationship going for months and years. And sometimes we would see that emotion totally switch from super excited to things maybe weren't going the way they were supposed to, or they were sold. And so working with Luke and thinking about that, we thought these guys are potentially being sold something that is not the right fit for them. And so that's where the consulting piece came in, where we said, you know what, we can spend a little bit more time with them, ask them some appropriate questions to find out what is the best fit for these people, right? What franchise opportunity is the best? And with over 4,000 franchise opportunities out there, it is extremely important to narrow that down and work with these folks to find really what they're looking for. Do they want to have 10, 20 employees? Do they want to have a brick and mortar location or operate from their home? How much do they want to invest? Do they want to run this for 3, 4, 5 years and sell it? Or is it are they going to pass it down to their children when they're done? So all sorts of questions that we ask these folks during the consulting process to make sure, hey, this is the right brand. It kind of fits your buy box is what we call it.
Buy box.
The buy box.
Okay,
right?
I like that.
And the other thing is, right, is the best franchise opportunity for one candidate is the absolute worst franchise opportunity for another. So I get questions all the time. Hey, I want to see your top 5 brands. Well, the top 5 brands for one individual would not be the same top 5 opportunities and brands for another based on what their buy box is, right? And so a number of those things we go over through that consulting process, discovery process, to make sure that we're, lining up, playing matchmaker, if you will, between that candidate and the right brand.
So that's fascinating. So talk a little about the buy box. What's in the buy box?
Yeah, a number of things. Do they want to be in a physical retail space? Do they want to run the business from home?
Okay.
Do they want to be the face of the business and, basically buy themselves a job, a 9-to-5?
A paycheck.
Exactly. Or are they looking at it as an investment opportunity where they're going to put a general manager in place and just manage that manager, maybe spend, 15, 20, 25 hours a week on it instead of 40, 50, 60? Do they want to be in the home service space? Do they want to be in health and wellness? Do they want to be in the pet industry? Where do they have passion? Because it needs to align with their passion, needs to align with their investment level, needs to align with their skill set. We ask them, do you like sales? Do you like marketing? Are you a networker? All of those things we ask during the discovery process to make sure that we're, pairing up and showing them the right opportunities.
Okay, so I work in corporate. I'm an accountant, okay? And I work in the accounting department of a big company. And I've been doing here, I'm 20 years into this company. I'm ready for retirement, but I'm not ready to retire. I'm 55 years old. And I went out and I found those top 5 brands. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I went up on ChatGPT or on the websites and I looked them all up, and by golly, I think I know what I want to do. And then you said, do you like to do sales? Do you like to do cold calls? Do you like to do networking? Do you like to go to events and tell people who you are and what you do at the Chamber of Commerce and the 4 or 5 or 6? And I speak to this from somebody who's done this. I mean, my health insurance agency, Benefits by Design, that we sold to Northwestern Mutual, I did all that. I started this radio show doing that. But you either like that or you hate it. Mm-hmm. And even if you think you like it, you may not like it as much as you thought you were going to when you're out doing the door knocking. Okay, so that's really interesting. We were coming up on the break, but give me a couple minutes on that before we go to break, because that, to me, that's a real impediment if you're not okay with doing that.
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head there, because 9 times out of 10, when we begin working with a candidate looking to get into franchising and business ownership, the brand, 2-3 brands that we narrow it down to, or the one that they finally invest in, 9 times out of 10, it's not anything that they ever thought they would be a part of, right?
Why is that? Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So it's generally something that they didn't even know was a franchise opportunity, or they came into our initial call and said, you know what, I would never do this or do that or be in that line of business. But it rarely fails where that is not in their final couple brands that they're looking at.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. Okay, because I think back on my own personal situation. If I'd known 6 months after I was into this thing what I was getting into, I never would have done it. Okay, it wasn't the hard work. It was the other pieces of it that made it so difficult. So that's fascinating information. We come back from the break, we're going to unpack some more of this, because I think this is the biggest challenge in my mind that you face if you're someone who thinks they want to make that move. You want help. You want to talk to somebody about this. Maybe you're listening to this right now and you go, I really need to talk to my husband about this, or I really need to talk to my wife. And so we're going down this way. Maybe we should be doing something different. Go to the website, franchiseresourcellc.com. franchiseresourcellc.com. Dillon will talk to you. Luke will talk to you. They're happy. They're agnostic, okay, when it comes to what brand or what franchise you pick, but they're going to tell you the reality of what you think you're walking into. You just heard him say 9 times out of 10, it's not what they thought it was. That's probably you if you're listening to this. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast across the USA. Stay right there. We got a lot more after this. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIA Radio Network. Shout out to our station, our affiliate in Lincoln, Nebraska, KLIN 1400 AM, 99.3 FM. Been with us quite a while. Happy to have them up in the Cornhusker State. Just happens to be, by the way, where Luke and Dillon are from. So we're happy to have them on board. In studio with me, Dillon Towey and Luke Towey. We're talking about their company, Francise Resource, and their website, franchiseresourcellc.com. We were going down that path, unpacking that box, Dillon. Let's kind of keep going through that a little bit. So there's the buy box that you talked about. And the other thing I thought was interesting in that last segment was the top 5. Yep. But then you came back and said 9 times out of 10, what they think they're going to do probably doesn't fit what they're really cut out to do. Okay, so let's go a little further into that. And the other thing I want to point out here, because you guys said this over breakfast, Luke, is that you're agnostic. in terms of if you want to do this franchise, we don't care whether it's this one, or this one. What you really care about is does it fit or are they going to be successful? Yes?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's why we're asking lots of questions. We're kind of the tour guide and trying to figure out what they're looking for by asking them tons of questions about, do you want a business that runs 7 days a week, right? Like, for example, at a franchisee that owned a bunch of Dunkin' Donuts, and they found out when they were going to have twins that, hey, how am I going to take care of the twins, be at their activities when this business is basically nights and weekends, right? Like I can't run this without that. And so went out to look for a business and they had all these different things that they were looking for. And they found out that, early childcare development was because there's no nights and weekends, right? Like there's
how interesting.
You know what I mean? So you're basically school hours, right? And
you're off on Saturday and Sunday.
Off on Saturdays and Sundays.
Plus you get the holidays.
You get the holidays off when they're not that. So that became the perfect opportunity, but they didn't know that when they started. So it's just going through the checklist of different things. And then depending on category, depending on what fits, we might have a top 5 or a top 10 in each category, whether it's B2B, B2C. They really want to be in childhood enrichment. They really want to be in the pet care space, so then we can narrow it down once we find out how those answers pair up. So like I said, like they don't know that might fit when they first come in. They might be zoned in on one opportunity, but when then they give all the answers to all the questions, and you're like, well, that opportunity that you wanted doesn't fit any of those things that you said that you wanted, right?
At Dunkin' Donuts is going to be a little more difficult than you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For some people, maybe it is the right opportunity, right? But what stage in life are you at, right? So you have kids, you don't have kids, you're before that, or maybe your kids are all gone, and maybe you don't care if you have to nights and weekends, right? So it's just pairing up what their vision is, and like Dillon said, I mean, that's really. Sometimes it's the money thing of the expectations, but a lot of times it's the lifestyle and what kind of time and effort and energy they're going to have to put into the business, what their perception of it is versus what the reality is. And so we want to unpack that.
There's a big gap between perception and reality. So Dillon, you said this on the break, and I want to get, and I'll kind of title this, You Don't Know What You Don't Know. So you think you're getting the franchise business, you're driving down Main Street and wherever you live, might be, and then you see 15 franchises that the Pizza Hut, the Firehouse Subs, the Chick-fil-A's, and you go, that's franchising. Well, actually not. Okay,
right.
We're on break. You named a few. We talked about this at breakfast. Gym Concepts, Turf Company. I had no idea there's a turf company. So immediately I think of, you got to have a lot of heavy equipment. You got to have a big warehouse. Talk a little. That's not the case at all. There's a company where you don't do any of that. Talk about that for just an example.
Yeah, there's a number of those in the service space where, once again, a lot of these franchise opportunities do not require the candidate or the potential franchisee to have any industry knowledge, experience in that space. And in all reality, they generally like those new franchise owners to come in without experience so they can train them on their model
the right way.
The right way.
Yeah.
And so everything is, teachable, trainable. But, for an example, the trash can cleaning franchise opportunities, the window washing corporate or commercial, and residential, landscaping. But you do think about a lot of those, and you think the heavy equipment. A number of these opportunities actually are subcontractor models where, as a franchise owner, you don't have 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 employees. You're actually subbing out the installs or the manual labor. And so you're not having to employ all those folks, whether you have jobs or not, right? So there's just a few of those things and racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment.
So buying big trucks, forklifts, those machines they lay sod with. I mean, I got an idea what all that stuff must cost versus being able to sub it out. And what you're doing is you're kind of the middleman between
you're the sales and marketing it. Yep.
That's it. Okay. And then does that go back to Am I good at sales?
Right.
Can I be good at sales? Am I good at networking? Can I go meet with home builders that are going to have a need for this and see if I can get their business, or go out and do individual homes that are remodeling, whatever the case may be? But you have to learn all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you touched on one. This is funny because I told you guys this on the break. So trash can cleaning. Who would ever hire somebody to clean trash cans? Well, I live out in a suburb in the country, and there's a company called Clean Cans. And I have these giant plastic trash cans that the big trucks come by. I'm sure everybody in the suburb knows what they are. Yeah. And they pick the thing up and they dump it. Well, in the summer, sitting in your garage full of trash, they stink.
Yep.
And when you don't wash them or you don't clean them, it gets worse. Along comes this company one day and they drop a flyer at my front door called Clean Can. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to clean my cans. I signed up the day they called. The day they gave it to me, I'm like, all over this, okay? But I didn't even know they existed.
Right.
That requires, I don't know how many of these they had. They had a truck. They had one guy in a truck that was specially equipped. It picked up the can, it washed the can, it put the can back. Deodorized the can, put the can back. Well, that's a pretty simple business.
Yep.
But who even knew that existed? You know what
Right.
I mean? So, I mean, now they're trying to figure out what they want to do, and you're introducing them to concepts they didn't even know were out there.
Yep.
Like the Dunkin' Donuts people didn't exactly do donuts. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
They got into the childcare business, okay?
Yep.
So talk a little bit about, they don't know what they don't know type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I compare it to, if you want to go make investments in something, you're probably not going to go out and chat GPT it, or if you want to go get your taxes done, you're not going to go out and try to figure it out on your own. So we think they're making this huge investment into their future, right? And so why not hire someone like us to help consult and help guide them through the process, since we've done it before, right? Before they make a huge investment into something and they don't know all the facts, they don't know what they don't know the questions to ask, right? And so at the end of the day, it's their decision, right? But we're just guiding them through the process, and so they make a good decision on their future, right? Like, we've seen too many things in the bookkeeping side where it didn't
You've
go
got
right,
500 franchises you're currently working with. You've probably seen about everything that's out there to see.
Yep. And so we don't like seeing that, and we don't think that it has to be that way, right? I mean, there's always, in small business, there's always that chance that it doesn't go well, but we feel like we can really reduce their risk when they're making these investments. So
yeah, and to piggyback on that, we work with these folks, but that whether somebody goes online, Google's Chat GPT, and gets into a franchise opportunity, or they would hire us to help them go through that process, that discovery process, there's no cost to them for our service.
Okay, I didn't know that, so that's a big deal. You're not charging them for the service, even though they're coming to you brand new and they don't even know what they want to get into.
That's correct. And so we get a kind of a finder's fee, if you will, from a franchise brand, right?
Yeah.
That they would become owner or a franchisee in.
And you're agnostic on the brand.
Yep, we can go anywhere, and they're not going to get a better deal if they go directly to the brand.
Oh no, they're not.
Franchise fee is
I'll
going to be
speak from experience.
Franchise fee is going to be the same, right?
Yeah,
They're just probably
it doesn't
maybe
change.
a little less educated on, what they're getting into, and
well, it's our job to show them the good, the bad, and the ugly of every opportunity.
That's it.
And then they can, we can work with them to make a decision. That's the other thing about all the brands we would show a candidate is, not only are we making sure that the business model and the franchise opportunity is healthy, but we're also, all these brands are vetted, making sure that their leadership team, their founders are the right people and good people. Because you can't have a good brand if you're lacking one of those things.
And that's critical. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about one other aspect of this. It's kind of funny because it came up actually in that Teams meeting that Luke and I had with their folks on healthcare. I'm leaving corporate now, and I'm going to go into the franchise world, but oh Lord, I forgot about the healthcare piece. How am I going to get health insurance benefits? How am I going to get any benefits? Okay, we're going to talk about that piece when we come back from the break. If you want information, fascinating stuff, right? I mean, they really know what they're talking about. The website, franchiseresourcellc.com, franchiseresourcellc.com. We'll be right back after the break. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate, broadcasting here on the HIA Radio Network, coast to coast, across the USA. We got one more. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA here on the HIA Radio Network. If you have a question or comment, the website is americashealthcareadvocate.com. If you're listening to this and you think, we're really thinking about doing this, we want to get out of the corporate world, we're ready to retire, we got a nice nest egg, we're willing to spend money to get into a franchise, give these people a call. Get on the phone, go up on the website, fill out their form, go to them and ask them. You just heard, Luke do this, Dillon do this. They're going to make sure you're making a decision that really fits your budget and fits your needs as well, so that you don't do something that you regret a year later. And the website is franchiseresourcellc.com, franchiseresourcellc.com. It's funny. We're on this Teams meeting, Luke, you, I, and the folks over at RPS BBDI who are doing the enrollment work, and Sam Nigro and your other team members, and you give this story about this. Talk about the lady. This is 30 minutes after you put the email out about Gig Care, which is the benefits program that you're offering through your company. It's a Tego product for 10-9 employees. Just talk about how that came about, because I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, I knew it was a real opportunity, like in the franchise space, but we sent out an email to our clients, and she happened to be a franchisee that used our services for the bookkeeping and accounting, but she's also, on the franchisor side and does some franchise consulting as well, and has clients that are getting into this area. And she immediately responded and said, that's one of the huge objections, that people have when they're trying to make the jump from corporate America is, all the security blanket, that they have working at corporate America. And then now it's like, okay, I got to go out on my own, but then I also got to think about healthcare benefits, right? And so what does that cost? And that's not something that the franchisors talk about in their pro formas and their FDDI.
They don't want any part of this.
Right? Like, it's not like, hey, you might have to spend extra money on healthcare. They're just assuming that that and you're going to take care of that on your own. But for people, that's a real challenge and a real, potential hurdle to get over to make that jump into owning their own business.
So I will tell you, as a 30-year recovering broker, if you will, okay, that the franchisors go out of their way to make sure they don't say anything about health insurance. I'll tell you why. Because the government has, in a lot, especially like in California and a lot of the blue states, we call them the People's Republics, they have tried through legislation to force franchisors and franchisees into buying health insurance off of their platforms, making the franchisor responsible for the health insurance piece, and they run from it. I'll give you a classic example. Our CEO owned mathnasiums. Rich Haldeman. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that he and I started our company, Tego, which offers the Gig Care product, was because the people that own mathnasium out of California ran away so fast when you mentioned healthcare. They didn't want any part of that. Okay. Right. They were terrified of it. Yep. So that's really interesting comment. Okay. So Dillon, they don't know that they're going to leave now. They think, okay, well, I've got Cobra for 12 months, 14 months, 16 months, whatever it is. Well, here's a little news flash. Now you're paying your part of that premium, which is, I don't know, maybe $600, $700, $800 a month. You're also paying the employer's part, which is another $800, $900, $1,100, $1,200 if the employer was doing more than 50%. Oh, and on top of that, you get another 2%. So now your health insurance bill went from $600, $800 a month down to $1,800, $2,200, $3,000 a month. And I'm talking about reality here. The people that have gone through this and come to us on the Gig Care side. So talk a little bit about that piece of the hurdle. They don't, because the franchisors, as Luke just said, they don't talk about this. Right. They don't want any part of this.
Well, yeah, and that's an expense, right, that just wasn't budgeted for, and that's a lot of people out of sight, out of mind, right? Their company that they worked for, corporate, was covering such a large portion. A lot of people don't know the behind the scenes of healthcare and health insurance. And so, that's a big obligation financially to take on yourself as a small business owner, right? You got a number of things you're juggling, trying to get a business off the ground. And then now you're also tasked with, coming up with that extra, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 to provide health coverage for your family.
Yeah. I mean, $25,000, $30,000 a year that you didn't anticipate.
Yep.
You're like, I got Cobra, man, for 12 months. We'll deal with this down the road. Or I got Cobra for 14 months. We'll deal with this down the road. Duh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, go take a look at what's out on the individual health insurance market. Go look at the ACA plans that are out there with, $13,000, $16,000, $17,000 out of pockets. Cost shifting over where you're paying for MRIs, CAT scans, out of pocket, the whole 9 yards are up against the deductible. And you got a narrow network where the health insurance carrier is only contracting with certain hospitals because the hospital is making such a small margin. They want volume, so they lock out all the other hospitals. Now it becomes a losing proposition. That great plan that you had when you left Amazon, when you left Apple, or when you left whatever the big company was, isn't so great anymore.
No. And like you said, the coverage, like people don't, want to have to change their primary care physician. They don't want to change the places that they have been going for years, right? Just because now they're paying for a more expensive plan and maybe they don't even have the same network, right? And so that's a tough thing for people. So
talk a little bit. You guys are offering this now. You got existing franchisees that are signing up for this, and then like the lady that's a franchisor comes to you. So this is obviously turning out to be something that's pretty popular with your folks.
Yeah, I mean, Sam was on last segment. He was my broker, and
he was really good.
Omaha, and he's really, really good. And we were part of an ACA plan previously, and obviously that changed where the cost and the networks and everything were not going to be beneficial. And he mentioned, oh, well, I got this new thing called Gig Care, and I was like, well, let's check it out. And we ended up signing up for it personally. And I was like, this is great, like for us, but like we have a ton of clients out here on the bookkeeping and accounting side and on the consulting side and just in the franchise industry in general that could really, really benefit from this. Like it's a huge opportunity. So I think over time we kept talking to Sam about it, and he's like, I think you're right. I think this is a huge opportunity.
Yeah, it really opened the door for us to take a. This is one of those things where, again, we didn't realize that there was this kind of a big opportunity out there, and Luke and Dillon and Sam kind of opened the door for us on this. We're very happy to be able to have it. Again, both of you, thank you for coming in here today. You drove all the way up here from Omaha to do the show today, and I really appreciate both of you being here. I think you offer valuable insight. I really urge you, when I do these kind of shows, there's a reason for this, okay? No, this isn't necessarily about healthcare, but it is about your health in terms of your financial health. If you get into one of these things and you dump your life savings in it or a huge chunk of it and it doesn't work out, that's not a very good situation, or you find yourself in a desperate situation where you're trying to figure out, how do I get out of it now? You want to learn all that before you do this. The website's franchiseresourcellc.com. franchiseresourcellc.com. They really know what they're talking about. They can really help you, and it's not going to cost you a thing to pick up the phone, give them a call, or fill out a form and have them speak to you. And now I leave you with this thought from Dr. Albert Einstein. The one who follows the crowd will usually get no further than the crowd. The one who walks alone will likely find himself in places no one has ever been. Remember, friends, it's a funny thing about life. If you refuse to accept anything but the very best, you most often get it. Thank you for listening to America's Healthcare Advocate Show, broadcasting coast to coast across the USA. Goodbye, America.